The first ship came down on a Tuesday morning in April. It crashed into the wheat fields of Kansas with a sound that people in 3 states could hear. Farmers ran out of their houses. Children stopped on their way to school. Everyone looked up at the sky and saw something that changed everything. The ship was massive. It was black and covered with strange marks that seemed to move when you looked at them. Steam rose from where it had landed. The wheat around it was burned flat for half a mile in every direction. Sarah Chen was the first scientist to reach the site. She worked for NASA and had spent her whole life looking at the stars, hoping to find something out there. Now something had found them instead. "Don't get too close," said Captain Marcus Webb, the military officer in charge of the site. He was a tall man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many bad things. Sarah stopped walking. She could feel heat coming from the ship even from 50 feet away. "What do you think it is?" she asked. "Nothing good," Marcus said. He was right. The ship opened 3 hours later. The sound it made was like 1,000 screaming voices all at once. Soldiers raised their guns. Scientists stepped back. Everyone held their breath. The creature that came out was nothing like what anyone had imagined. It was 12 feet tall and covered in scales that looked like they were made of oil. It had 6 arms and a head that was mostly teeth. Its eyes were red and had no pupils. When it opened its mouth, more teeth were inside, rows and rows of them going back into darkness. "Open fire," Marcus shouted. The soldiers shot at the creature. Hundreds of bullets hit its body. None of them did anything. The creature looked at them like a person might look at ants. Then it moved. Sarah never forgot what happened next. The creature killed 20 soldiers in less than 10 seconds. It was so fast that she could barely see it. One moment it was standing by the ship. The next moment it was among the soldiers, tearing them apart with its claws. "Run!" Marcus grabbed Sarah's arm and pulled her toward the trucks. "We need to get out of here." They ran. Behind them, the screaming continued. That was the first day. In the weeks that followed, more ships came, dozens of them, then hundreds. They landed all over the world, in cities and forests and deserts. Each ship brought more creatures. The creatures seemed to have only one purpose. They killed. They killed humans whenever they found them. They did not try to communicate. They did not seem to want anything except to destroy. Governments tried everything. They used tanks and planes and missiles. They even used nuclear weapons on some of the landing sites. Nothing worked. The creature's scales seemed to absorb any attack. Even the nuclear bombs only made them angry. In 3 months, half the world's population was dead. Sarah worked in an underground bunker now. She was part of a team trying to understand the creatures, trying to find a weakness. Every day she studied the bodies of the few creatures they had managed to kill in accidents or building collapses. Every day she found nothing useful. "There has to be something," she said one night, rubbing her tired eyes. "Every living thing has a weakness." Marcus was there too. He had survived the first attack and many more after that. He was thinner now, older looking. "Maybe they're not really alive," he said. "Maybe they're machines." "They're alive," Sarah said. "I've seen their biology. It's strange, but it's definitely organic. They breathe. They eat. They bleed, even if their blood is purple and burns like acid." "Then why can't we kill them?" Sarah shook her head. "Their scales are harder than any material we have. Their healing is incredibly fast, and they're smart. They learn from our attacks and adapt." "So we're done," Marcus said. "Humanity is finished." Sarah looked at him. Something in her refused to accept that. Something deep inside that had been with humanity since the first humans stood up on 2 legs and looked at the world around them. "No," she said, "we're not finished. We've survived everything else. Ice ages, plagues, wars, we evolved to survive. That's what humans do." Marcus laughed, but it was a sad laugh. "These creatures are millions of years more advanced than us. How can we evolve fast enough to fight them?" Sarah didn't have an answer. Not yet, But she kept working, she kept looking. And then, one night, she found something. She was looking at old files from before the invasion, research papers about human evolution, about the strange abilities that some humans had shown throughout history, abilities that science had always said were impossible. Stories of people who could see the future, people who could move things with their minds, people who healed from injuries that should have killed them, people who seemed to know things they couldn't possibly know. What if, Sarah said to herself, what if those stories weren't just stories? She started a new line of research. She began testing the survivors in the bunker, not for their physical abilities, but for something else. Something that had been hiding in human DNA for thousands of years, waiting for the right moment to wake up. Sarah's tests took weeks. She worked in a small lab deep in the bunker, surrounded by machines that measured brain activity and genetic markers. Most of the survivors thought she was wasting time. They wanted her to find a weapon that could kill the creatures. They didn't understand what she was looking for. "Brain waves are normal," her assistant Tom said, looking at the screen. He was young, maybe 25, with glasses that were always dirty. "This guy is just like everyone else." "Keep testing," Sarah said. "There has to be someone." They tested 43 people that day, all normal. The next day they tested 50 more, still normal. On the third day, a girl named Maya walked into the lab. Maya was 14 years old. She had dark skin and curly hair that she kept tied back. Her mother had died in the first week of the invasion. Her father had died trying to protect her from a creature. She had survived alone for 2 months before soldiers found her hiding in an old warehouse. "Sit down here," Sarah said gently. "This won't hurt. We're just going to measure your brain activity." Maya sat down. She didn't look scared. She didn't look like much of anything. Her eyes were empty in a way that made Sarah's heart hurt. Tom attached the sensors to Maya's head. He turned on the machine. Numbers and lines appeared on the screen. "That's strange," Tom said. Sarah looked at the screen. Her eyes went wide. Maya's brain activity was not normal. It was not even close to normal. Parts of her brain that should have been quiet were active. Patterns that should not exist were flowing through her neurons like rivers of light. "Maya," Sarah said slowly, "have you ever experienced anything strange? Things that other people couldn't do?" Maya was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Sometimes I know things." "What kind of things?" "Things that are going to happen before they happen." Maya looked down at her hands. "I knew the creatures were coming. I dreamed about them for a year before they arrived. I told my parents, but they said it was just nightmares." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "What else can you do?" Maya looked up. For the first time there was something in her eyes, something alive. "Sometimes," she said, "I can move things without touching them." She looked at a pen on Sarah's desk. The pen lifted into the air. It floated there for a moment, spinning slowly. Then it dropped back down. Tom's mouth fell open. "That's impossible." "No," Sarah said. Her voice was shaking, but not from fear, from hope. "It's not impossible, it's evolution." She spent the next few hours with Maya, learning more about her abilities. The girl could see the future, but only in flashes. She could move small objects, but it made her tired. She could sometimes feel what other people were feeling, even from far away. "Why me?" Maya asked. "Why can I do these things?" Sarah thought about all the research she had done, about human evolution, about the strange powers that people had reported throughout history, about how evolution worked, giving species new abilities when they needed them to survive. "I think," Sarah said, "that humans have been evolving these abilities for a long time, maybe thousands of years, but they were hidden, dormant, waiting." Waiting for what? For this, for a threat big enough to wake them up. Sarah told Marcus about Maya. At first, he didn't believe her. Then Maya showed him what she could do. She lifted his coffee cup into the air. She told him what he had for breakfast that morning without being told. She described his dead wife, a woman she had never met. "How is this possible?" Marcus asked. "Evolution isn't always slow," Sarah explained. "Sometimes it jumps forward. Scientists call it punctuated equilibrium. The right conditions can activate genes that have been sleeping for generations. And the creatures, they're the right conditions." "I think so. The stress of the invasion, the radiation from their ships, the chemicals they release. Something is triggering these abilities in people who have the right genetic makeup." Marcus looked at Maya. The girl stared back at him with her dark, serious eyes. "Can she fight them?" he asked. "I don't know yet, but we need to find others like her. We need to find everyone who has these abilities and bring them together." Marcus nodded slowly. "How do we find them?" Sarah smiled. "We use Maya." They spread the word to other bunkers around the world. They told people to look for anyone who showed strange abilities, anyone who could do things that science said were impossible. Meanwhile, Maya closed her eyes and reached out with her mind. She searched for others like herself, people whose brains burned with the same strange fire that burned in hers. She found them. They were scattered all over the world, hiding in ruins and caves and forgotten places. Each one was different. Each one had their own unique ability. In Japan, there was an old man named Kenji who could heal wounds by touching them. In Brazil, there was a woman named Rosa who could move faster than the eye could see. In Russia, there was a young boy named Pavel who could make fire appear from nothing. And in America, in a bunker not far from where Sarah worked, there was a man named David who could do something even more incredible. David could control minds. Sarah met David a month after finding Maya. He was tall and thin, with kind eyes and a soft voice. Before the invasion, he had been a teacher. Now he was something else entirely. "I can't control humans," David explained. "Their minds are too complex, but animals are easier. I can see through their eyes, make them do what I want." "What about the creatures?" Sarah asked. David's face went pale. "I tried once. I reached into one of their minds." He shook his head. "It was like looking into an endless darkness. There was intelligence there, but it was cold, alien. I couldn't control it, but I could feel what it wanted." "What did it want?" David looked at her with fear in his eyes. "To end all life, not just on Earth, everywhere. They travel from world to world, destroying everything. They've been doing it for millions of years." Sarah felt cold. "Why?" "I don't know. Maybe they were made this way. Maybe something created them as weapons, or maybe they just evolved to be the perfect destroyers." David paused. "But there was something else, something they're afraid of." "What are monsters afraid of?" David smiled, and for the first time since the invasion, Sarah saw hope in someone's eyes. "Us," he said. "They're afraid of us, of what we're becoming." 6 months after the invasion began, Sarah had gathered 27 people with special abilities. They came from every country, every background, young and old, rich and poor. The only thing they had in common was the fire that burned in their minds. They called themselves the Evolved. The bunker had changed. What was once a place of fear had become a place of hope. Sarah watched as Maya taught a young boy how to focus his telekinetic powers. David worked with Rosa on combining their abilities. Kenji healed the wounded who still came in from the surface. But Sarah knew that hope wasn't enough. They needed to test themselves against the creatures. They needed to know if their powers could actually make a difference. "We're not ready," David said when Sarah told him her plan. "We've only been training for a few weeks." "We don't have time to be ready," Sarah replied. "The creatures are getting closer every day. If we wait too long, there won't be anyone left to save." Maya stepped forward. The girl had changed in the months since Sarah first met her. She was stronger now, more confident. Her eyes no longer looked empty. They burned with purpose. "I've seen it," Maya said. In my visions, we fight them. Some of us die, but we win. We can win. Some of us die, David asked. Maya nodded. Her face was serious. That's the price. But if we don't fight, everyone dies, every human, every animal, every living thing on Earth. The room was silent. Then Rosa, the speedster from Brazil, laughed. I didn't survive 2 months in the jungle to die in a bunker. I say we fight. One by one, the others nodded. They were scared, but they were also determined. They had evolved for this moment. They would not run from it. Marcus helped them plan the attack. There was a nest of creatures 20 miles from the bunker, about 30 of them living in the ruins of a small town. It would be a good test. We go in at night, Marcus said, pointing at a map. Rosa scouts ahead. Maya tells us what's coming. The fighters take the front. The healers stay back. What about weapons? Asked Pavel, the fire maker from Russia. He was only 16 but had the eyes of someone much older. You are the weapons, Marcus said. Our guns can't hurt them, your powers can. They left at midnight. The sky was dark and full of stars. Sarah thought about how beautiful it was and wondered if they would ever have time to appreciate beauty again. Rosa ran ahead. She was a blur of motion, almost invisible in the darkness. A minute later, her voice came through the radio. 32 of them, they're sleeping. At least I think they're sleeping. It's hard to tell with those things. Maya closed her eyes. They know we're coming, they felt me. They're waking up. Sarah's heart raced. Then we don't have time to be careful. Everyone move. They ran toward the town. The evolved moved like a single body, each one knowing their role. As they entered the ruins, the creatures emerged from the shadows. The battle was unlike anything the world had ever seen. Pavel raised his hands and fire exploded from his palms. Not normal fire. This was something else. It burned white-hot and stuck to the creature's scales like glue. For the first time, Sarah heard the creatures scream. Rosa moved among them like a ghost. She was too fast for them to hit. She had knives made of a special metal that Sarah had developed, and she cut at their joints where the scales were thinnest. Maya stood in the center of everything, her eyes glowing faintly. She was seeing the future, calling out warnings. Left, duck, behind you. Her voice guided the fighters like a conductor leading an orchestra. A creature lunged at Sarah. She had no powers, but she had a weapon that David had helped her make. It was a device that broadcast a specific frequency, the frequency that the creature's minds operated on. She pressed the button. The creature stopped. It grabbed its head and fell to the ground, twitching. It works, she shouted. The disruptor works. But the battle was far from over. There were too many creatures, and the evolved were getting tired. Using their powers took energy, and they were beginning to slow down. A creature caught Rosa. She wasn't fast enough. Its claws tore through her side. She screamed and fell. Rosa, Maya cried out. Kenji was there in seconds. His hands glowed with golden light as he pressed them against Rosa's wound. The bleeding stopped. The flesh began to knit back together, but Kenji's face was pale. Healing took so much from him. David stepped forward. His eyes were closed and sweat ran down his face. I can feel them, he said. All of them. I can't control them, but I can confuse them. He reached out with his mind. The creatures stopped attacking. They looked around, confused. Some of them started attacking each other. Now, Sarah shouted, hit them now. Pavel unleashed everything he had. Fire consumed the town. The heat was so intense that Sarah had to look away. When she looked back, the creatures were burning. They were dying. When it was over, 32 creatures lay dead. The evolved were exhausted and wounded, but they were alive. All of them. We did it, Maya said. She was crying, but she was smiling too. We actually did it. Sarah looked at the burning ruins, at the dead monsters, at the brave people who had fought beside her. This is just the beginning, she said. There are thousands more out there, maybe millions, but now we know we can beat them. Marcus came to stand beside her. For the first time since the invasion, he was smiling. "You were right," he said. "Humans evolved for this. We evolved to survive." "Not just survive," Sarah said, "to fight back, to win." News of the victory spread fast. It reached every bunker, every survivor camp, every hidden corner of the world where humans were still holding on. And with the news came hope. More evolved began to appear. People who had been hiding their abilities, afraid of what others would think. People who didn't know they had powers until they needed them most. They came out of the shadows and joined the fight. The war was not over, it was just beginning. But for the first time, humanity had a chance. A year after the invasion, the evolved numbered over 500. They came from every corner of the planet, each one with their own unique gift. Sarah had stopped being surprised by what humans could do. She had seen a woman in Egypt who could turn invisible, a man in Australia who could communicate with any animal, twin brothers in Canada who could share their thoughts across any distance, a girl in Kenya who could make plants grow with just a touch. Evolution, Sarah now understood, had been preparing humanity for this moment for thousands of years. The abilities had always been there, hidden in the DNA, waiting for the right trigger. The creatures had provided that trigger without knowing it. The war had changed. What had once been a one-sided slaughter was now a real fight. The evolved struck at creature nests all over the world, destroying them one by one. The creatures fought back hard, but they were no longer winning. Then the ships started leaving. David was the first to notice it. His mind-reading powers had grown stronger with practice, and he could now sense the creatures from miles away. "They're afraid," he told Sarah one morning. "Really afraid, I can feel it. They've never encountered anything like us before." "What do you mean?" "They've destroyed thousands of worlds. Millions, maybe. Every species they encountered, they wiped out. No one ever fought back effectively, until now." Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, pride. "So we're the first. The first to evolve fast enough. The first to develop powers that could match theirs." David paused. "They're calling for more ships, bigger ones. They're not leaving. They're calling for reinforcements." The news hit Sarah like a physical blow. "How many?" "I don't know, a lot. They see us as a threat now. Not just prey, but a real threat. They want to wipe us out completely before we become too strong." Sarah called a meeting of all the leaders. Marcus was there, along with David, Maya, and the strongest of the evolved. They gathered in a large room that had once been a cafeteria. "We have maybe 6 months," Sarah said. "Maybe less. When the reinforcements arrive, they'll come with everything they have. We need to be ready." "Ready how?" Rosa asked. She had fully recovered from her injuries and was stronger than ever. "We've beaten them in small battles. We can't fight an armada." Maya stood up. Her eyes had that distant look they got when she was seeing the future. "We don't fight the armada," she said. "We stop them from coming." "How?" "The creatures have a leader, a queen. She's on the largest ship in orbit around Earth. Everything they do because she commands it. If we kill her, the others will be lost. They won't know what to do." Marcus shook his head. "The ship is in space. We don't have any way to get up there." "Actually," Sarah said, "we do." She had been working on something in secret, a project she hadn't told anyone about. She led them to a hangar deep beneath the bunker. Inside was a ship, not one of the alien ships, but something new, something human. "We salvaged parts from crashed alien ships," Sarah explained. "Combined them with our own technology. It's not pretty, but it flies, and it can reach orbit." David stared at the ship. "You want us to fly into space and attack an alien mothership?" "I want us to end this war," Sarah said, "before it gets worse." They spent a month preparing. Sarah trained the evolved how to fight in zero gravity. Maya mapped out the inside of the mothership using her visions. David practiced pushing his powers further, trying to reach the Queen's mind. The night before the mission, Sarah found Maya sitting alone on the surface, looking up at the stars. "Are you scared?" Sarah asked. "Yes," Maya said, "but not of dying. I'm scared of what I've seen." "What have you seen?" "The future isn't fixed. It changes based on what we do. I've seen us win. I've seen us lose. I've seen everything in between. It all depends on choices we haven't made yet." Sarah sat down beside her. "That sounds terrifying." "It is, but it's also beautiful. Every choice matters. Every person matters. We're not just fighting for survival. We're fighting to choose our own destiny." Sarah looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there, the enemy was waiting. Tomorrow they would meet them. "We evolved for this," Sarah said softly. "Not just our bodies, our spirits, our will to survive, our refusal to give up." Maya smiled. "That's what makes us human." The next morning, 20 of the strongest evolved boarded the ship. Sarah went with them, even though she had no powers. She had helped create this chance. She would see it through. Marcus wished them luck from the ground. "Come back alive," he said. "We will," Sarah promised. The ship lifted off. Sarah watched the ground fall away. She saw the burned and broken landscape below, the scars of the invasion. Then they were through the clouds, and Earth spread out beneath them in all its damaged beauty. "Contact," David said. His eyes were closed, his mind reaching out into space. "The mothership is directly ahead. They know we're coming." "Good," Rosa said, cracking her knuckles. "I'm tired of sneaking around." The mothership was enormous. It made the ships that had landed on Earth look like toys. It was covered with the same strange marks, the same oily black scales. Looking at it, Sarah felt small, insignificant. Then she looked at the people beside her, at Maya and David and Rosa and Pavel, at all the evolved who had come so far, who had lost so much, who were still fighting. She didn't feel small anymore. "Take us in," she said. "Let's finish this." The ship entered the mothership through a docking bay that Maya had seen in her visions. The creatures were waiting for them. Hundreds of them, packed into the tight corridors like a living wall of teeth and claws. "Remember the plan," Sarah said as the doors opened. "David leads us to the Queen. Everyone else protects him." The battle began immediately. Pavel sent waves of fire down the corridors. Rosa became a blur of motion, her knives flashing. A woman named Lynn created shields of pure energy that blocked the creatures' attacks. David walked in the center of them all, his eyes closed. His mind was reaching forward, feeling for the Queen. "This way," he said, pointing down a corridor. They fought their way deeper into the ship. The creatures seemed endless. For every one they killed, 2 more appeared. But the evolved kept pushing forward, driven by something stronger than fear. Maya suddenly stopped. Her eyes went wide. "There's something I didn't see," she said. "Something blocking my vision." A door ahead of them opened. What came through was not a regular creature. It was twice as large, covered in scales that seemed to absorb light itself. Its eyes glowed with intelligence far beyond what they had seen before. "A guardian," David whispered. "The Queen's protector." Pavel threw fire at it. The guardian walked through the flames without slowing down. Rosa attacked with her knives. The blades shattered against its scales. "It's too strong," Lynn said, her shields cracking under its assault. "We can't beat this thing." Sarah looked at the guardian, at the evolved struggling against it, at Maya, whose eyes were still clouded with confusion. And she understood. "You can't beat it alone," Sarah said. "But you're not alone, you're never alone." She grabbed Maya's hand. "Connect them," she said. "Connect all of them. Let them share their powers." Maya understood. She closed her eyes and reached out with her mind, touching every evolved in the corridor. She linked them together, not just their thoughts, but their very souls. Something happened that none of them had experienced before. Their powers merged. Pavel's fire flowed through Rosa's speed. Lynn's shields absorbed David's mental energy. They became something greater than the sum of their parts. They became humanity. Together they struck the Guardian. Fire and speed and energy and will all combined into a single attack. The Guardian screamed, a sound that shook the whole ship. Then it fell. They kept moving, still connected. They were no longer 20 separate people. They were one force, one purpose, and nothing could stop them. The Queen's chamber was at the heart of the ship. The door was massive, made of a metal that seemed to shift and flow. But when David reached out with his enhanced mental powers, it opened before him. The Queen was like nothing they had ever seen. She was beautiful in a terrible way, with scales that gleamed like jewels and eyes that held the light of dying suns. She was ancient, Sarah could feel it, old beyond measuring. "You come to challenge me." The Queen's voice was in their minds, cold and vast. "You are insects. Your species is nothing. You will be erased like all the others." David stepped forward, his eyes met the Queen's. "No," he said, "we are not like the others." Through their connection, he showed her what humanity was. Not just their bodies, but their spirits. Their history of survival against impossible odds. Ice ages, plagues, wars, disasters that should have ended them but never did. He showed her their love, parents protecting children, friends dying for friends, strangers helping strangers, the endless capacity of humans to care for one another. He showed her their creativity, the art and music and stories they had created over thousands of years, the way they found beauty even in darkness. And he showed her their will, the refusal to give up, the determination to keep fighting no matter the cost, the fire that burned in every human heart. "We evolved for this," David said. "Not just our powers, our whole species. Everything we've been through, everything we've survived, it was all leading to this moment. To you." The Queen's eyes flickered. For a moment, Sarah saw something she had never expected to see in those alien depths: uncertainty. "You cannot defeat me," the Queen said, but her voice was less certain now. "We already have," Maya said. "I've seen it. In every future, in every possibility, we win. Because that's who we are. We are the species that refuses to die." The evolved attacked together. Every power they had, unified into one overwhelming strike. Fire and force and mind and will. The Queen fought back, but she was fighting something she had never encountered before. She was fighting the combined spirit of an entire species. The battle lasted hours or seconds. Sarah couldn't tell. Time seemed to stop and start and twist around itself. She felt herself becoming part of something larger, something that included every human who had ever lived and ever would live. When it was over, the Queen was gone. Not dead, but changed. David had reached into her mind and shown her what she had never allowed herself to see: the beauty of life, the tragedy of what she had destroyed, the horror of her own existence. The Queen's last act was to send a message. It went out to every creature on Earth, to every ship in the armada that was coming. "Leave, do not return. This world is protected." Then she was gone, dissolved into light and silence. The evolved stood in the empty chamber, still connected, still united. They looked at each other with wonder and exhaustion and joy. "We did it," Rosa whispered. "We actually did it." On Earth, the remaining creatures stopped fighting. They walked to their ships like sleepwalkers. Within hours, they were gone. The ships rose into the sky and disappeared into the stars. The evolved returned to a planet that was wounded but alive. The war was over. Humanity had survived. Months later, Sarah stood on the surface, watching the sun rise over a world that was slowly healing. Maya was beside her, no longer a frightened girl but a young woman who had helped save her species. "What happens now?" Maya asked. Sarah smiled. "Now we rebuild, now we grow, now we become what we were always meant to be." "And if more aliens come?" Sarah looked up at the stars. They no longer seemed cold and threatening. They seemed like possibilities, adventures waiting to happen. "Then we'll be ready," she said. "We evolved for this. We evolved to survive, and now we've evolved to thrive." The evolve spread across the world, helping to rebuild. Their powers became tools for healing and construction. New children were born, some with abilities, some without. It didn't matter. They were all human. They were all family. And somewhere in the far reaches of space, the message spread, a warning to all who would threaten Earth. Beware the humans. They are small. They are fragile. They live on a tiny world at the edge of nothing. But they evolved for this. And they cannot be defeated.